This is the Cubs Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Chicago Cubs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Cubs Postcast here on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel. Joe George here with you in an easy win for the Cubs. They win 10-3 against the New York Mets. The magic number is down to 2. Matthew Boyd was much better. I know their names, unlike Carl Ravitch. Disaster, that broadcast. But we saw some big innings from the lineup in this one. A much better game for the Cubs. 5 straight losses. Needed to get back on track in this one, and they were able to do so. There's really just a lot of good in this game. Before we get to the player of the game, really quickly want to mention it was really nice to see Daniel Palencia back out there. We're not going to focus on him too much, but really positive to see him back on the mound and used in the way he did. But we will officially get the show rolling with our Locked On Player of the Game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
So there's a lot of options for the guys in the lineup, but for me, I'm going to go with Matthew Boyd as the Locked On Player of the Game for the Cubs today for a couple of reasons. One, his outing itself was very good in this game, and it was needed. Just like a Cubs victory, this outing was needed for him. 5 1/3, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 86 pitches. He looked more like Matthew Boyd pre-All-Star break than he has pretty much at any point since the All-Star break occurred. He's been struggling. He has not had his best command. He's not had his best stuff. He's been getting hit around a little bit. That was very encouraging to see from him. So not just the fact that he kept the Mets at bay, and that would have been, we saw what happened yesterday when Cade Horton couldn't go farther than the third inning. And what the bullpen did, the bullpen was much better in this game. But this is what I think, actually, honestly, with the Cade Horton news, I think this even adds to Matthew Boyd's performance today. Just that Cade Horton is going to go under an MRI. They are being extra precautious, but still feels a little nerve-wracking right now for the Cubs. Like, you need Matthew Boyd if the Cubs have a shot to make a run this year, which I know a lot of people feel like they don't right now. I totally get it, the way they played the 5 games before this, the way the second half of the season really is gone for the Cubs. But if they're going to, Matthew Boyd's going to be a huge part of that. So very, very positive to see him out there and looking the way he did today. And now probably, I'm assuming that's his last start of the regular season. And we'll see him back out there now in a wild card game, most likely for the Cubs against the Padres. Again, the magic number is down to 2. The Padres lost today. The Cubs won. So the Cubs are only really potentially 1 day away. They could clinch the top seed in the wild card series as early as tomorrow. I think the Padres play tomorrow. So maybe the earliest is Friday. But this is refreshing, honestly. Is the other word I would use besides much needed for the Cubs. It's refreshing as a fan to see them play the way that they did today, to see the lineup contribute. And I would say overall, from like a big picture perspective, what's happened in the last 2 days from the Cubs lineup. You're seeing them produce runs in a bunch of different ways. We saw the long ball today, which the wind is blowing in. It didn't really matter for the Mets or the Cubs. It mattered at one point. We saw some disasters on the base pass, but for the most part, the Cubs were able to go out there and just get the win and get good at bats against a young kid for the Mets who's been really good this year. I mean, they basically have like three Cade Hortons out there, not as good, but like 3 rookies they're going to be relying on to try to make a run themselves, or even to just make the playoffs at this point. But we saw a lot from the lineup. Let's get into it. Let's get to our turning point of today's game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
All right, so after the first inning, where there's a questionable send by Quentin Berry, he had 2 of those today. Well, one a send, one not a send, where Michael Busch is thrown out at the plate. It was an incredible throw, but you've got runners on first and second right away. You don't score in the first inning. The vibes are bad after what's happened the previous 5 games. So you need to respond, and that's what the Cubs did there in the third inning. Ian Happ hits a double to bring in Matt Shaw and Michael Busch. Ballesteros comes through, squeaks the ball past the third baseman for an RBI there to put up the Cubs' 3rd run of the game. Seiya Suzuki hits a double that brings in Ian Happ. That's the 4th run. And then Pete Crow Armstrong with the sac fly to make it 5-0 there in the third inning. Needed that. Like, after the early inning disaster, needed to come back out there, get runners on base. They had it again. Runners on first and second with no outs. You need guys to come through in that situation to kind of rub off the stink of what happened at the beginning of the game. So seeing the Cubs do that, that's why it's a turning point of the game. Because if they would have not scored in that inning, it feels like all the momentum is just with the New York Mets. And it would have felt like this game would have been a tough hill to climb to get a victory. But then we saw Matt Shaw hit a home run. He had a really good day at the plate again, which honestly isn't that shocking. He's been a little bit more down than he has been up in the last week or two, or maybe even a little bit more than that. But a really nice home run from Matt Shaw there in the fourth inning that made it 6-0. Ballesteros scores on an error. And this is where the Mets kind of meted again, like they did yesterday. That team, man, to try to make the playoffs and to be as reckless with the baseball as they are, where you've got 2 runs yesterday scoring on errors, a run scoring today on an error, and then a wild pitch that scores Pete Crow Armstrong that made it 8-0 there in the 5th inning. I cannot imagine being a Mets fan. We're frustrated, but the Mets are literally throwing the ball away to try to win these games. It is unbelievable what they are doing. And look, we're a Cubs podcast, but like it's shocking to see a team that's trying to lock in a playoff berth play that recklessly. And maybe that's why they haven't been able to lock up a playoff berth at this point. Jay says Ballesteros had some key hits early in this game. Yeah, I love what we're seeing from Moises Ballesteros. He is – there's obviously not a playoff roster, question at this point. He's on the playoff roster. Kyle Tucker returning on Friday, it sounds like, against the Cardinals, which is really positive for this team. Honestly, when they said that before the game, I was shocked just because it didn't feel like we were going to see that happen with the way the updates had been coming out for Kyle Tucker. But Suzuki's been fine in right field. We saw the bat going a little bit, but Ballesteros is hitting the ball really well. What's going to be interesting is, is there, like, if Kyle Tucker can only DH, which he's going to DH on Friday, right? Like, well, I guess Suzuki's just in right, and Ballesteros at that point is just a pinch hitter. As crazy as it sounds, I trust him in that situation already as a rookie. I mean, he is someone that we're going to feel better about coming up in a pinch hit situation in the playoffs, better than Justin Turner, better than Santana. Like, Ballesteros is a guy that I think we're all going to feel very good about when the playoff time comes. Because while I agree keeping Mo Baller in the lineup would be a good thing, I don't think they'll be able to if Tucker is going to be out there. And I don't think Craig Counsell is going to sit Seiya Suzuki to play Ballesteros as the everyday DH in a playoff series. Maybe for one game, maybe there's a matchup they like better than the rest, but that would surprise me a little bit. All right, let's talk about what else we saw from this game and get your questions and comments in as well here in the chat on the other side. That's all coming up next year on the Locked on Cubs postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Not reading that one. Guys, you probably have heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is a simple connect with board-certified doctor, 100% online. So online, that's nice. And if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly to your door. That is important. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to RUGIET.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure you use our code so they know we sent you to Rugiet.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Gametime. I saw some people talking about wildcard tickets today. Lottery tickets were going out there in the emails. The best place to get your tickets through a home wildcard series for the Cubs is going to be Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, the energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person, but actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the the price you pay. It's awesome to know upfront because look, it's tough when you order anything anywhere and there's a ton of fees. So with Game Time, you know exactly what's in front of you. Again, look, you'll be looking for those wild card tickets. The Cubs 2 games away. The magic number is 2 to lock up a home wild card series, and you can get your tickets on Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
A lot of questions here in the chat on the Locked On Cubs YouTube channel about Owen Casey making the playoff roster. We're still waiting for him to get fully cleared for the from concussion protocol. I will say I doubt it. I think obviously again Ballesteros is a lock. I know Matt and Sam will be doing way more on the playoff roster construction than I'm able to do on these post-game shows. I don't think Owen Casey's going to factor in because of guys like Turner, Santana, Willie Castro. At some point, it becomes a numbers game, especially with Castro out there. Plus, you have Tucker returning. You've got a bunch of outfielders. You got a hodgepodge of guys who can play first base and DH. So I don't think we'll see him out there. Probably Alcantara. I guess whichever one's faster could make the roster as a late pinch running guy in the playoffs. But I don't think we're going to be seeing Casey make the lineup or the postseason roster. Tomorrow's game, Imanaga on the mound. The most important thing we want to see from that is a similar performance to what we saw from Matthew Boyd today, because he hasn't been at his best. I would love to see tomorrow a game in which Shota Imanaga gives up no home runs. That would be huge for him. He's given up 29 this season. 24 of them have been solo home runs. So that's always a positive, I guess, in a glass half full kind of way, that there's not guys on base. But you need to see a good performance from him as well, because just gives you even more confidence. Again, there are some questions. It really seems like with Cade Horton, they're just playing it, extra safe at this point of giving him the MRI, making sure everything's okay. I know Cade said, he would have been okay to go if it was a playoff situation in last night's game, and they're just being precautious right now. But we'll wait and see. I have trust issues with professional franchises, specifically this one, when it comes to injuries. The other thing from today's game that was really, really positive, I think, was what we saw from Michael Busch. A double, a home run. Nico Hoerner is Nico Hoerner, right? Like, he's coming through every single time you need him to be. You have guys on, you need to get a rally started. It feels like Nico is always a part of that in some version. But Michael Busch, I think he, again, tonight is another example where it feels like his bat is starting to look much, much better. And if you can get him at the top of the lineup, hitting home runs, being aggressive, I'm all for it. A while ago, I thought they were going to make a change and Nico might just be the leadoff guy, but they're not going to make that change at this point. And I would expect to see Michael Busch in that leadoff spot against righties and Nico Hoerner in there against lefties. That's going to be the game plan. But overall, those are the big positives I would say from this game tonight. Just seeing the lineup go out there, put up 10 runs at night after you score a bunch of runs, and the bullpen again was much better. Daniel Palencia pitching in the 6th inning, I really like that. O'Reilly says here in the chat, Palencia's in the 6th was smart for a couple of reasons. One, ease him back in. Don't ask him to do a lot. Don't ask him to come in a high-pressure situation. It hadn't been great before. And frankly, I think when you look at what's happened with the other guys in the bullpen, you talk about getting a starter to give you 5 good innings in the postseason, then handing it off to your bullpen. I think Daniel Palencia pitching earlier in this game could be also a sign of things to come. I don't think it's just to get him back out there in an easier situation. I really like that situation that they put him out there in tonight, specifically for his return. But when I think about the postseason and what it's going to look like for hopefully more than just 3 games, Daniel Palencia, I don't think is going to factor in being your closer. It's going to be Keller. Kittredge, Thielbar, Palencia are your core group of guys that you trust the most right now in the bullpen. So, hopefully Palencia can get a good amount of work. Frankly, I think they should kind of force it, in situations like this where you're up by a lot, even if you're happen to be down by a lot tomorrow, let's say, and just, get him out there. Maybe not tomorrow, but, during the Cardinal series, give him back-to-back days. So Palencia's back. Cal Tucker sounds like he could return on Friday. I will believe it when I see the scorecard that he's officially back in the Cubs lineup on Friday. But the update that Craig Counsell gave before the game was very, very encouraging for sure. All right, before we wrap up today, let's get to what you'll be talking about after this game.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Biggest thing we're all talking about now, magic number is 2. The fact that home games at Wrigley Field are right around the corner. That now less than a week, 6 days from now, the Cubs could be hosting the San Diego Padres in the first game of a 3-game wild card series. That's all that matters. And look, for a number that hadn't moved in forever because the Cubs were on a losing streak, it felt weird. I saw a couple people, I think Eric and others, saying here in the chat, it felt weird, kind of rooting for the Brewers. And the Padres are off tomorrow, so the earliest you can clinch that top wild card spot is going to be on Friday. But that's what the focus in on is now for the Cubs. You've locked up your playoff spot. Kyle Tucker is nearing a return. Daniel Palencia is back. The lineup looks much better. So it's Cade Horton and it's magic number. Those are the things that matter the most for the remaining of the season. Is clinching that top wild card spot and getting positive updates on both Cade and Tucker for the rest of the season. Cubs get hot. Now we'll definitely be in the playoffs. I hope so. I hope this is a sign of things to come. Like, this is after playing really bad baseball for 5 days collectively. The lineup was good yesterday. The lineup was good today. It'd be really nice to see the remainder, the 4 games left in the regular season, that this is a example of what the Cubs lineup can start to do on a day. You're not going to ask them to score 10 runs every game, but if you can go out there and just see them putting together better at-bats, coming through with guys on. I mean, even Ballesteros, he did his job when Michael Busch got thrown at home. That's probably the other thing we're talking about here a little bit. I do think there'll be some Quentin Berry discourse. Sending Michael Busch there was probably a bad decision. It was an excellent throw. I mean, most center fielders, it's probably the right decision. He probably would have been safe there because he was so close as it was. But then he held up someone I think it was Nico in the 3rd inning, where that was questionable, where the left fielder for the Mets was playing with daisies out there and was not really ready to throw it home. So not the best night for Quentin Berry. And I think if the Cubs would end up losing this game, which obviously they did not, probably would be a much harsher conversation happening around him and his job as the third base coach for the Cubs. All right, that will do it for us tonight. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow right here on the Locked on Cubs YouTube channel. Remember, hit that subscribe button to YouTube, plus wherever you get your podcasts, Apple and Spotify. Matt and Sam will have their show coming up here in just as I die to wrap up the show. We'll have their show coming up here in just a little bit, talking all things Cubs baseball. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow night. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your evening or the rest of your day. If you're listening on the audio version of the show, have a good night and peace.